How does this affordable curl cream compare to this high-end curl cream? Let's find out. If you're new here, my name is Michelle. I'm a licensed hairstylist with over 20 years of experience, and I use those 20 years of experience to help you have healthy, happy hair. So now I picked these two curl creams to compare because they both happen to be favorites of mine. They've made it in favorites videos before, and I do feel like they have a lot of similarities. However, I don't know exactly how similar they are because I've never done a side-by-side comparison, and there's nothing like a side-by-side comparison to show us exactly how two products compare to each other. So that's what we're going to be doing today. In order to be able to isolate and compare the two curl creams, all of the other products on my hair are going to remain the same for each side. The only thing that's going to be different from one side to the other is the curl creams. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my Innersense Sweet Spirit leave-in conditioner. Now with leave-in conditioners, I tend to spray them into my hand, especially ones like this that are a little bit on the kind of creamy side. And then I just run it through my hair. I just find that I get better distribution this way versus spraying it onto my hair. And then I just do the same thing on the other side, a few sprays into my hand. And I mostly run it through my mid-links to my ends, which is where I need most of that to be. Once that's applied, I used a detangling brush to go ahead and brush it through for even more even distribution. And this brush will pick up some of that product, bring it down my hair strands, and then there will still be a little bit residual in the brush. So when I bring it back up to the top, I will get a little bit of that up there, but not too much. It'll actually be the perfect amount. We don't want a ton of leave-in conditioner at our roots because it can leave our hair over-conditioned and cause it to be flat and not have any volume. When I do side-by-side comparisons, I don't do a very clean middle part from front to back. It's completely unnecessary. I will leave my slightly off-center part and let everything fall as it's going to fall going back, because everything on this side is going to be the one cream, everything on this side is going to be the other. You're going to be able to tell it without having to have a complete down the middle part, and basically all that's going to do is annoy me because I just don't like it. So I've gone ahead and sectioned off my hair, and this section I'm saving for later for the other curl cream. And I start with a section that goes from ear to ear, or would if I was doing my whole head right now. And then I do the middle section and then the top section. I do have coarse, high density hair, and I find that putting it in section by section like this works best for me. So on this side, I'm gonna put in the Livimg Proof Curl Definer for curls. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, completely forgot. Sorry about that, but anyway, this is the one for curls. I believe they also have one for waves and one for coils. This is the one that I like to use, and it's just one of my favorites. And so I've got a little bit in the palm of my hand, and I'm just going to run it through with my fingers. Then I take my styling brush, and this one is a boar bristle, nylon bristle combination. And I go ahead and brush it through for even distribution. And then I go ahead and take vertical sections and brush it through to smooth it. There's lots of brushing going on here. And I use a little bit of tension to brush style my hair, give it a little bit of shake to allow it to kind of fall into its own natural curl clumps. And then once I've done that, I just go ahead and put my hair in the palm of my hand and then gently bring it up and give it a little bit of a squeeze. And you can do that more than once. I find that once is plenty, or even twice is plenty, to encourage the curls to start to form. And then I just continue on with the rest of my hair. I style the next two sections exactly like the first, where I put in the curl cream, then I brush it through for even distribution, and then I brush style my hair. I give it a little shake and then a little bit of a squeeze. So that's all applied, and it's looking good so far. I've got nice definition, I've got nice clumping, and some good curls starting, and no frizz, so that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply the Cake Curlfriend cream to the other side, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, so I'll be back in a few. Now that both sides are applied, I'm gonna talk about some of the similarities and some of the differences that I noticed while applying. So one of the similarities is that they both have a lotiony texture. So this one is the Livimg Proof Curl Definer, and here's what that looks like when I spread it around. It has a little bit more thickness than the curl definer up here, because you can see that that's kind of starting to run a little bit, but they are very similar in consistency with their lotiony type texture. They also both have a really great slip. I was able to easily glide the brush through my hair when I was brush styling, and they both have really good stick factor. And for those of you who might be new to my channel and you haven't heard me talk about the stick factor before, it's the ability of a curl cream to get the hair to stick together and clump together. It's what's going to help with all of that definition. And it's not sticky, but you can just feel it really stick the hair together. And both of them have a really great stick factor. Now for the differences. The Cake Beauty Curlfriend Curl Cream, I feel like has more slip than the Livimg Proof Curl Definer. But like I said, they both have great slip, so this isn't a problem whatsoever. The difference is pretty minimal, and it's just in comparison to each other. It's not something that I would have noticed or did ever notice when I use each one of these on their own, because they do have really great slip. And then as far as the stick factor goes, I have to say that the Livimg Proof definitely has more stick factor than the Curlfriend. However, again, it's one of those things that I wouldn't or didn't notice the difference between the two of them when using them on their own. It was really in a side-by-side comparison that I happened to notice them. And now let's go ahead and take a look at my frizz control and definition, and as you can see, I've got nice clumped defined curls on both sides. I have no frizz on either side, so we're off to a really great start. And because I'm not a one and done person and I don't use curl creams for any kind of hold, I use them for frizz control, for clumping, for definition, I'm gonna go ahead and use a gel, and I'm gonna use the Biolage gelée. I've used this one off and on for 30 years, ever since cosmetology school. I like it because it plays nice with pretty much everything, and it's got a really good hold that I happen to like. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this on both sides, and I just get a really good dollop. It's a very liquidy gel, so it's hard to show you without it literally running down onto the floor, but I'm just gonna go ahead and apply this, starting with my ends and mid-lengths and working up. I do put gel up at my roots. It's just I put a smaller amount of it after some of it's come off on the rest of my hair, and I kind of pat around and scrunch it into the ends. And then I do the same thing on the other side. Now to finish off with a little bit of the surface finishing spray. And I'm doing this because I always wear hairspray in my hair, so I'm putting that in, and again, I'm putting it on both sides so that everything is equal across the board and we can see how well each of the curl creams performs against each other. Time to diffuse using this method right up here, and I'll be back. My hair is now completely dry, so let's go ahead and take a look at these results and do some comparisons to see what the similarities and what the differences are. And I have to say that just after diffusing, that both sides look so similar. I've got some nice volume on both sides. I have nice, light, fluffy, bouncy curls. Neither side feels really heavy or weighed down. They both feel pretty soft, and I have very little frizz. And now for the differences, and I am going to be super nitpicky here because they are so similar. I see a little bit more frizz on the Cake Beauty side than I do on the Livimg Proof side, and a little bit more definition over on the Livimg Proof side than I see on the Cake Beauty side. But like I said, I am being super nitpicky because as you can see, they look so similar. They are really similar. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some serum to my hair. This is my Evolvh Wonderbalm, and all I use is one pump. You don't need a whole lot. And I'm going to apply it to my mid-lengths and ends first, and then bring it up to the top up here. And then with the little bit that's left on my hand, it's just a tiny sheen. I'm just gonna go ahead and scrunch my ends and scrunch my hair all over. I don't really have a cast. There's no cast on either side. So, but I still like to scrunch anyway. I kind of feel like it breaks things up and fluffs things up a little bit more. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and give my hair a little bit of a shake, just putting my fingers in at the roots and shaking it all up to give it a good fluff. And loads of volume, still minimal frizz. And now it looks like the frizz is a little bit more evenly matched on both sides, but both sides are looking really good. And like I said, very, very similar. They feel very similar as well. Like I said, they both feel really soft, but if anything, I'd have to say the Livimg Proof side feels a tad softer than the Cake Beauty side, but it's such a small difference that I'm being really, really nitpicky here. And I have to say that these two are really comparable from what I'm seeing. And I kind of had a feeling that they would be, because when I was thinking about different things to compare, these two came to mind as just being so similar to each other, and I just really wanted to see exactly how similar they are to each other. So for those of you who are curious or who have wanted to try this but it's not available where you are, or maybe it's out of your budget, then this could be a good dupe for you. But I'm not gonna leave it at that though. I will be back on here tomorrow morning to show you what my day 2 hair is looking like. I'm not gonna go any further than that just because I don't use my curl creams as hold products. That's the gel's job, that's the hairspray's job. But day 2 is still gonna show us kind of what the curl creams are able to do in terms of keeping that definition and the frizz control going into day 2. So I'll be back on here tomorrow, show that to you and give you my final thoughts. However, before I leave for today, one thing worth mentioning with these two products is that this does contain silicone, so the Cake Beauty contains silicone, and I don't believe this one does. I'll double check and put it up on the top, but I'm almost positive there's no silicone in here. So for those of you who are trying to avoid silicones, this one does contain silicones and this one does not. That's it for today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so here we are on morning of day 2, and as you can see, the differences are still really, really minimal. So let's take a closer look. And I do see a bit more frizz on the Cake Beauty side versus the Livimg Proof side, but it's not a ton more. Like I said, I'm being really, really nitpicky here because they are very similar. And then the other thing that I see is that this side is a bit more stretched out or elongated than this side. So there's probably something going on in there with the Cake Beauty that is kind of dragging my curls down, and it doesn't feel very heavy, but it's just something that's worth noticing, that it is a little bit longer and elongated and stretched out over here versus over here. And remember, everything else that I put in my hair was exactly the same, so this is likely due to the curl cream. And you know, it's not horrible, like everything over here still looks pretty good. It's just a slight difference, and it's a very small one. If I were not doing a side-by-side comparison, this is probably nothing that I would really even notice all that much. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and give my hair a little bit of a fluff to see what it looks like after that. A good fluff fixes a multitude of sins. So we've got more volume, and the frizz situation is kind of even itself out. There's still some weird stuff going on over here, but you know, there's weird stuff over here too. It is day 2. I would have to say that these are both pretty comparable. There are some differences, but the differences are so minimal that you really have to, like I said, be doing a side-by-side comparison to notice those differences. However, there is one difference that I didn't mention yesterday that I do feel is important to mention, and that's fragrance. So the Cake Beauty side definitely has a stronger fragrance. It smells good. It smells like a baked good of some sort, like all of their stuff does, but it is stronger and it is still lingering. And mind you, I did layer with 3 other products, and that is the fragrance that's standing out to me, is the Cake Beauty. Over on this side, I don't really smell anything at all. It just smells like fresh, clean hair. And as you saw, I basically had to shove my hair up my nose in order to smell it. It's just nice and clean and fresh. And the scent of that is just not really even present or reaching my nose most of the time. And this, I can definitely smell it even without having to shove it up my nose. It's just there, I smell it. And every time I move my head, I kind of catch a whiff of it. So I felt that it was important to mention that for those of you who are sensitive to fragrances. I am a chronic migraine sufferer, and strong fragrances can sometimes trigger migraines. It's why I tend to avoid many drugstore products, because I've noticed that drugstore products seem to be more heavily fragranced than high-end. Now that isn't necessarily true across the board. There are exceptions to absolutely everything. It's just with the ones that I've tried, the drugstore ones tend to be a lot stronger, but there are some high-end products that are stronger smelling as well. Case in point is the Kerastase Curl Manifesto. It is pretty strong, it smells like perfume, very florally, and it's one of the reasons why I don't use that very often either. But like the Kinky Curly Curling Custard, which is more of a drugstore product, I love what it does for my hair. I just don't use it that often because of how strong it is. And basically by day 3, I'm ready to wash it out of my hair. And even though the Cake Beauty isn't as strong, if I were to use all Cake Beauty, it is. It's because then you're layering all of those stronger smelling products on top of each other and it gets to be a little too much. So that's just something for those of you who are sensitive to fragrances to consider, to think about, but otherwise everything else is, the differences are minimal. So if you aren't trying to avoid silicones, incidentally, silicones do not build up any more on the hair than natural oils and butters because those do build up on your hair as well. However, if you're using high quality products and you're using a shampoo or a cleansing conditioner that actually has cleansing agents in it, it will be able to get rid of that and not build it up, plus clarifying on a regular basis or whenever it is needed, then you're not gonna have a problem with it as well. But anyway, for those of you who still want to avoid silicones, the Cake Beauty does have silicones. It is more highly fragranced, but if you're somebody who isn't worried about either one of those things, this would be a very good budget alternative to the Livimg Proof one because they are very similar. Hopefully you found this comparison helpful. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.